in the light of international agreements, UN climate experts and the rest of it, Jacob Rees-Mogg and Liz Truss, in the eye of an energy storm, are being genuine revolutionaries?
Yes, I mean, what they're doing shouldn't be revolutionary. It should just be what we used to do, carrying on, and will still be doing in 20 to 30 years' time. But after nearly 2 decades of governments of all political parties committing themselves to extracting the UK from fossil fuel industries, nobody has been investing. And even those that wanted to were blocked by excessive regulation and deliberate interference in the licensing rounds by the regulator with the nod and the wink of the ministry. In fact, a year ago was when I was first on your show. We were talking about this and the government's desire to deliberately push up energy prices in order to make renewables and other forms of low carbon power look more affordable. So this is a revolution. It's going back to common sense and pragmatic energy policy that balances the different things. It balances security of supply, what we need to keep people from freezing to death to keep the lights on. It's balancing affordability, because if we drill here, then it's cheaper than if we are importing it from other countries. And it does retain decarbonisation. If you're doing import substitution, which is really what this is about, then you're making no difference at all to climate change, other than in the sense that it causes less emissions to do it domestically than it does if it's coming from a third-party country with lower standards than our own.
Absolutely. And going forward, even when we aren't in such a crisis, it would be brilliant finally to have it there, and about time too. I introduced you as Institute of Economic Affairs and said, slightly tongue-in-cheek, that you have a better hearing from a Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng-led government than perhaps previous incumbents in Downing Street have had. But we've talked about this as well, and it really irritates me. You were slightly dismissive there about alternatives like wind power and solar power, and we've had our arguments about that before, but just parking that, it does provide something. What I don't understand is why gas is allowed to totally dominate the price structure for energy in this country. And it's as if, much, much cheaper solar power and much, much cheaper wind power don't even get a look in. And they should. It's ridiculous economics.
Okay, well, actually we agree. So I'm not pro-gas and anti-solar and wind. What I'm pro is getting the government out of the way for all of these different forms of supply so they can compete with each other, and we can then have the most efficient and effective path to net zero possible. So at the moment, there would be a lot of wind in that. But for wind to be treated fairly, you've got to take account of the intermittency and its need for storage backup, which at the moment it isn't. Let's go to your first question about the gas price and why it's so important. A lot of this comes from the original decarbonisation drive, when we shifted the UK from being wedded to coal to replacing it with gas, which saved an awfully large amount of carbon emissions, but in the process made us very exposed to the regional gas market, which is what's been disrupted by the war in Ukraine. So the Labour Party designed the system which rewarded the original renewables fleet by linking it to the wholesale price plus a subsidy. And the wholesale price tends to be the price of gas. It's always the marginal unit on the grid. So what's happening at the moment is that renewables, about 80% of them that were installed between 2002 and 2017, are getting vast sums of money while their costs haven't increased, simply because it's linked to the price of gas.